Okay, so Freewell have kindly sent me along their latest filters for the DJI Mini 3 Pro, and they are the anamorphic lens and the wide angle lens. And with this kit, it's called the 5-pack, you actually get 5 ND filters as well. I'll quickly say that the ND filters will not fit the current lens you have on your camera. They only fit these 2 additional lenses, so don't buy them thinking that they're going to fit on this. They only work on the wide angle and anamorphic lens. Now, I will say that they've sent me these to review, so I haven't paid for them. But just to let you know, I do buy Freewell filters because I've just recently bought these myself. They weren't sent to me by Freewell, and it's the landscape series. So you've actually got grey gradual filters for the drone, which I'm going to test again later because they will make a big difference to your landscape shots. So I paid for those. I don't always get free stuff from people to review, but in this case, they've sent me these to actually test out. So what I'm going to do quickly is explain what each of these lenses does and what you can expect from them. Now, you've got your standard lens on here, which is really good. I can't remember what the field of view is, but the wide angle lens goes up to 111 degrees field of view. So it does add a significant amount to the actual shot you're taking. But I will say that if you're lower down with the wide angle lens on and you have anything that's linear in front, like a road or a row of buildings, row of houses, anything like that, you're going to get a slight bit of distortion. So just be aware of that. But if you're high in the sky doing landscapes, adds a lot of width to it. It looks fantastic. If you're, say, hovering along a road and you've got buildings either side, you will get some barrel distortion. So just be aware of that. But it's one click in video editing software and you can cancel that out. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. But it adds 100, so it's 111 degrees, and you can see on the screen now the difference between the standard lens and the wide angle lens. So there's a significant difference. So it does add extra to the shot. The anamorphic lens adds almost the same width to the shot, so it's not hugely different. Very, very slightly less than the wide angle lens, but what it actually does is squeezes the footage in. So anamorphic lenses are used for cinematic look, so you get a kind of thinner, longer shot. But what happens is when the drone's actually filming with this lens on, it will squeeze the image in so it fits onto the 16:9 sensor. What I found was that the anamorphic lens had slightly better colour balance. It looked slightly nicer colours, and also there was less distortion and the exposure looked slightly better. So if I had to choose one of these for a wide angle shot, more cinematic, I would go with the anamorphic every time. Another thing the anamorphic lens does is if you've got a point of light that's quite bright in the shot, like headlights on a car or maybe a torch in the distance, you'll get this blue streak going across. And it's used on, you see it in film sometimes when you've got cars coming along the road. You've got the anamorphic shot, really wide, kind of deep cinematic look with these blue streaks going across, and it looks really good. Another caveat with the anamorphic lenses, you do get sometimes, and this is even with the super expensive lenses, you will get some focus fall off. So parts of the screen, because it's been squashed and de-squeezed and messed about with, you may see some parts of the image, whether it's the top 2 sections or maybe on the edges, you may see some slightly out of focus shots, but it happens in the cinema as well. You probably just never noticed it. So I'm going to now show you how to put these on. Obviously when the drone's off, the gimbal's just moving about, so you just grab the camera, twist the existing cover off, and then let's take the wide angle lens on, hold it again in place, and then just twist and it's on. Very, very simple. And now you've got a wide angle lens on the drone. Okay, so let's take that off. Now let's do it with the drone on. And what I'm going to do is add a filter to this as well. Now, quick caveat again, always put the filter onto the lens before you put it on the drone, because the filter is very slightly harder to put onto the lens. So if you're trying to do that while holding a gimbal that's on, you're going to need a bit more force, a bit more pressure. So I wouldn't recommend that. So what you do is get one of the filters with the lens, and you actually put it in from the bottom. I hope you can see that, because if you try and do it from the side, it doesn't work quite so well. But if you do it from the bottom, put the bottom bit in first, twist it up, it just goes on very, very easily. Okay, so now we've got a wide angle lens with an ND filter on, and I'm going to turn the drone on, and we're going to take that one off and put this on with the actual gimbal on. You've got to be really careful here, so do this at your own risk. So you can see we're on there, gimbal's working perfectly. So all I'm going to do is hold this very carefully, and then just twist the lens off, and we're off, and the gimbal's still fine, still working okay. Then we're going to take this lens with the ND filter on and just hold it very gently. Try and keep the gimbal in place as much as possible. Twist it gently, and we're in place and we're ready to go. Okay, so if you're going to do it that way, I did it multiple times yesterday and everything was fine. So now we've got a ND filter with a wide angle lens on there. all looking really good. So if I now put a filter on this one in the bottom, straight on like that, no problem. I'm going to hold this gently, take this off. That's okay, still working. And then we just hold it very gently again and put the anamorphic lens on, twist it in place, and it's ready to go. So if you are in a hurry and you've landed and you need to put a different lens on or a filter, then obviously you can do that with the drone going, then you can take off straight away and you're ready to go. But like I say, just be really careful when you're holding the gimbal and taking filters on and off, lenses on off, that kind of thing. Can be done, just get used to it. Do it like I'm doing to test when you're on the when you're on your desk at home. Just practice like this, so when you're out in the field you can do it really quickly. Just whip that off and then we'll put the standard one back on and it's ready to go again. I'm going to quickly show you some screen stuff now and show you the difference. So if we go onto the screen, so I've got a few clips in Vegas Pro, which is the editing software that I use. Bear in mind that you can do everything that I'm going to do here in your own software, so you'll just have to figure out how to do it. So first of all, we've got a clip here, and bear in mind that the drone was in exactly the same position for all of these shots. It was on a wall and I didn't even move the camera when I changed lenses. So everything you're seeing was taken at exactly the same angle, etc. So this is the first one. This is the standard lens that comes with the drone. And then if we switch to the wide angle lens, you'll see that you get a lot more width. So if we look at the right hand side here where that boat is, you've got a little bit there, and this building here goes right up to the edge. If we go to the next one, you can see that building, you've got all that extra there, and you've got all that extra there from this side of the boat. But what you will notice is this bowing effect on the actual wall I was sitting on. So it's quite a lot. You do get a lot of width though. I must admit I was quite impressed. It's 111 degrees. So I would recommend that if you're flying high, you're going to get minimal effect like this. It's only when you're close to anything with a linear edge like buildings or roads, things like that, you're going to get some distortion. Fairly easy to fix in software, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. In fact, let's do that now. If I was to go into here, into the effects, so if I double click lens correction, add it, and click OK. So now I can actually select different lens models to actually change this and correct it. So I don't think it's got the DJI on here, but I know that the Canon, for some reason, the Canon PowerShot actually looks really good. So I'm going to scroll down to PowerShot, and if you see there, we've corrected it straight away. So if I scroll through some of those, you'll see the distortion changing. So whatever software you've got, you can actually go through all the different sort of lenses. There we're back with the bow effect, but then we can see that a couple of the lenses do actually correct it. So let's go again. Let's the standard lens, that's wide angle, and that's anamorphic. So that's not how it ends up in the timeline. I'm going to show you how I did that. If I go to properties, back up to media, and I'm going to correct this, put it back to square. So when you load anamorphic footage into your timeline, it will be the 16:9 aspect ratio, and you can see everything slightly squeezed. If we go back to the standard lens, you see that building there. If you keep your eyes on it, you can see it's slightly squeezed up by 1.19, a factor of 1.19. So all you need to do in this software in particular is right click, go to properties, go to the media, and when you find, so whatever software you're in, find the pixel aspect ratio, and I'm going to change it to 1.19, click OK. That de-squeezes it, so the building is now the same as it was in the standard lens, but we've got this de-squeezed effect, and we've got the letterboxes, and we've got an elongated, really cinematic looking shot. So if it was between, for me personally, between the wide angle, because there's not a massive amount of difference in the width you get with both lenses, but for me, I think the anamorphic looks way better. It just seems to expose it nicer. You get less barrel distortion and you get nicer colours. There is no filters on here, no ND filters. I think it looks pretty good. So what does it look like when it's tilted up? So here we can see that the lens, this is the standard lens. When I tilt the lens up to about 14 degrees, with the standard lens, you don't see any distortion. It's just your standard lens looks really good. Everything's hunky-dory. That goes up to 14 degrees to there. Do the same with the wide angle lens, and you can see the buildings are very slightly distorted, and it gets worse the further you go up because it's a wide angle lens. Then if we look at the anamorphic lens, it does distort a bit, but stopped, but not nearly as much. And I think, again, I think it looks way nicer. So it's pretty cool. Now these next ones, I was on a table outside the Brewers Quay in Weymouth, and I wanted to test all three to see what sort of distortion we got on this building. So if I play this, again, I was going up to 24 degrees this time, and you'll see that there's no distortion whatsoever with the standard lens. We take it up to the top. No distortion whatsoever, looks pretty good, all's hunky-dory. Wide angle lens, you can already see some distortion. Let's pause that and go back. If you look at this pole here and the building over here, When we go over to here, you can see that's got some distortion and the buildings there. All of it's got this kind of pin cushiony effect. So, but as we go up, you can see that it just carries on with that distortion, but you've got a much wider field of view, so it's pretty good. Okay, then we go to the anamorphic lens, and you can see there we've got slightly straighter. If I flick between the two, you can see I think the exposure is just nicer for whatever reason between the two. We'll have another look at that in a second, but as we go up, we do get some distortion, but not nearly as much, and I think it just looks really nice. So by flicking between the two, what I actually did, you're looking at the wide angle camera here, but all I've done is actually brought in the letterbox effect to make a really good comparison between the wide angle lens with the letterbox effect added to the actual anamorphic lens. So if I fade between the two, this is the wide angle lens, that's the anamorphic, that's the wide angle, that's the anamorphic. Now pay attention to the windows here, because these were only taken a few minutes apart. The weather was exactly the same. All the camera settings were the same. No other filters other than the two lenses were added, but you can see that it almost has a polarizing effect with the anamorphic as we switch to that. It just looks a much cleaner, much nicer. And if you look at the colors over here, as we distort, as we go into the anamorphic, the colors just seem to be vibrant, more vibrant. The glass looks a bit more as though it's had a polarizer filter on. Overall, I think the anamorphic lens is much nicer than the wide angle, but they've both got their place. Like I've said before, if you're using a wide angle lens, it's good for properties. If you can't get back far enough, you're going to put a wide angle lens on, but bear in mind the building will distort and you'll need to undistort it when you put it on the timeline. So that's it really. I think the anamorphic is a really good lens. So I hope this really helps. The price, if I bring this over, so you can see on the Freewell site that the price is $129.99 for the two lenses and the 5 filters, and it'll be the same on Amazon, and I'll leave links down below for both. I do get a slight commission if you buy through Amazon. You don't pay any extra, but I get a few pence just to help me run the site and do more videos. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope this has really helped make your decision whether you want these lenses. I would recommend them, especially for the anamorphic lens. So if you like this, please give it a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe, share it with your friends, do what you need to do, and we'll see you on the next video.